Welcome to the Productivity Podcast. Today I am joined by Ben Collier, co-founder at Ocasta. Hi, Ben.
Good to see you, Simon. How are things?
Yeah, good. And we're looking forward to welcoming you at the Productivity Forum in Birmingham on the 10th of September, which is next month at the time of recording. So we're looking forward to welcoming you and the team there.
Yeah, it'll be our first time there, but we're very excited. We've heard very good things about it.
Good. So we will find out a bit more about Ocasta then before the event and yourself. So let's start with you, Ben, co-founder, but that's probably not what you've done since you left college, uni, whatever. So do you want to give us a bit of a potted career history?
Yeah, well, truth be told, we did set up Ocasta not very long after I left university. So we've been in business 16 years or so now. When we set the company up, we were an app development agency. And as you can imagine, back in kind of 2011, apps were the hot new thing. So we were creating apps for the likes of Virgin Media. We created their TV Guide app before TiVo had one ready and kind of really helped get lots of UK brands up and running with some really cool tech. But it was in about and back then I was a developer at heart, and setting up a business, it was kind of development by day and project management by night, or a bit vice versa there. But I'd say in around about 2014 or 2015, not through any grand plan, but through a bit of serendipity, a few desks down at Virgin Media sat one of the retail operations team down from our main contact there, and the ops team there were looking at digitizing their operations manual, getting it off of an old SharePoint website that was on one back of house PC and the printed A4 binder where they were sending out quarterly updates saying swap page 14 for this page and all of that stuff. So we helped them on the project there and kind of started moving away from creating apps for consumers, but moving across into kind of bespoke projects that were for retail and big enterprises behind the scenes. And what I really liked about that was the stuff that we brought across was we kept that consumer simplicity. So everything we do is still as easy to use as the apps that you go and get from the App Store. Because especially back in 2015, the tools that employees were given at work were far worse than the tools they had in their personal lives.
So long journey. The world's changed. I know off air we were talking about kind of how AI has changed the world. So when you first started, it was around the app development, and then obviously we all kind of end up in a situation we look back on that may have been fortunate, pre-planned, random, that kind of gives us a pivot, I suppose. So was that a conscious pivot away from just developing apps, or was it just based on that conversation and it kind of then put you on a different trajectory?
I mean, pretty much that. It spun us off onto a different trajectory. We started doing bespoke apps for enterprises, and then quite quickly realized we were building out a really good suite of tools for all of these different pain points that were coming. So I suppose, we're bootstrapped, so we're not kind of VC funded and scratching our heads thinking, what should we build next? We had kind of real retail and frontline customers coming to us with real pains. And then over the years, realized we had enough of those building blocks to turn it into a proper frontline operations platform and take it to market, which is what we've been doing for the last 6 or so years now.
So we're out there, we've got the platform. You talked about pain points. So what kind of things are clients coming to you with, customers, and how's Ocasta helping them to solve those problems?
Yeah, well, what we see is there's too much guesswork that goes on in retail, not just on the shop floor, but often back in head office as well. So as a frontline operations platform, we help remove that guesswork. So the teams on the ground actually know what they need to do in any moment, and the leaders can see what's really happening across the business. So, for some specific examples, we're looking at things like comms and task management. But what we've noticed from a common pain from our customers is lots of the comms they send out are actually tasks in disguise. So an example of that, we worked with a retailer who had just opened a new flagship store. The head of operations was sat in the onboarding session for the 10 new starters that were joining that day. And each of them were told to go and read their communications. And the number one comms was the poster pricing issue. A certain product had the wrong pricing on all of the posters. But then 10 people in that room all went and read that communication. But the head of operations knew that the goods store manager at that location had already fixed that first thing in the morning. So 10 people had just gone and read something that was already resolved. They didn't even need to know it was a problem. So that gave us a big push kind of 24 months ago to move towards what kind of working out what comms should actually be sent as tasks and making sure once one person in that location's done it, it's cleared for everyone to really reduce that noise and the wastage. Another one we're seeing is around that kind of knowledge and learning side. So we have a knowledge base, but what we do differently from a lot of our competitors is that same knowledge base can be extended into short bits of micro learning. So an ops team can have their SOPs, hit a quick button. Of course, we use a bit of AI behind the scenes to generate some suggested questions that they can tweak and change, and then turn that into a course in the matter of minutes as well. And unlike having, say, your intranet and the learning management system in another place, it really helps have that one version of the truth because the learning is powered by the knowledge side of things in there. And then, of course, all of your classic things like doing those store visits, all of those audits and those tasks and pieces that have to happen in stores every day. But my personal favorite bit that we do is around observations and coaching. So a store manager observing one of their associates interacting with a real customer, tracking that against the ideal sales journey, and then building out an action plan and a coaching framework off the back of it. And then the best bit is back in head office, the teams get a view of where all those skill gaps are across the whole organization, where they can focus their training and their initiatives.
Interesting. So how does that work? We're not videoing things. We're not implementing new technology in the locations. It's on a tablet, I assume, or a back office PC. What's the process look like for a colleague if my manager was observing me?
Yeah, so a good point. Everything that we do is done through an app. So we do work on the web as well, but obviously trying to use a back office PC when you're observing a real kind of interaction doesn't work. But we've been asked in the past, well, can we not tap into the CCTV feeds and use AI to analyze what's going on? But quite honest with you, I think it's too easy to forget that retail is real people kind of talking to real people in real places. And you can be sat in a boardroom or a head office thinking, wouldn't it be great just to automate all of this? But I think that human judgment part, especially from the coaching side, is really important. So a typical observation would look like the store manager observing the associate, and that would have a kind of pre-made framework from head office to track through what kind of key behaviors they want to see. So from simple things, so we work with lots of specialty retail. So from things like, are they introducing themselves by name? Are they asking the customer's name? So they then use it back in a sentence, all the way through to recommending the right products, meeting the needs, and then obviously closing as well. I think it's about 64% of retail associates don't actually ask for the sale. They'll be really good at building rapport with the customer. They'll understand the products really well. They'll make great recommendations, but they won't say, are you ready to buy or should we take this to the till? So loads of really great kind of opportunities through observations to spot those gaps and then close them.
And people listening might be thinking, that's fine. We use mystery shopping. We use, and I've talked about it a lot, surveys, and I personally have survey fatigue. I get a survey for everything and fill them in for nothing. What would be the advantage you've got here of that one leader who understands the process and what happens every day in the relationship with a colleague and the way you capture it?
Yeah, well, obviously, mystery shopping, first of all, gets very expensive very quickly. And for that reason, retailers don't deploy it at a level enough to get a good overview across their estate. It might be that you've captured one associate in each store every quarter, and that's typically what a good retailer would be doing if they're doing mystery shops. So it really depends on that associate, what mood they're in. And of course, these mystery shoppers often stick out like a sore thumb. They're not your ideal customer. They're probably a student looking to make some extra money, and you can spot them a mile off when they're coming into the store as well. So that's already going to skew the interaction and the data you get off the back of it as well. So for mystery shops, what I love about observations is you're capturing real customers in real moments. And you could argue, well, maybe the associate knows they're being observed, so they're going to do a better job. But if you're doing these observations on each associate, say once a week or even just once a month, you're still building up a bigger snapshot and helping train them in where those gaps are. And of course, you mentioned the kind of survey fatigue. To get the survey, you have to have actually transacted and purchased something. So you're only measuring the people that went through to buy. But I always think the more interesting bit to me is, well, why aren't people buying? So one of the things that our customers do on their observations is they'll say, like, was a transaction made or not? And then you can go and look at the data saying, okay, what behaviors, when these behaviors are missed, what's the impact on that on the transactions as well? So I often think, if you tell me the conversion rate that you've got in store, I can know what's happened. But if you show me the behaviors, we actually know what we can change to kind of affect that metric.
Interesting. So, yeah, I like the point around some of the pieces that are out there at the moment are only capturing if there's a completed transaction. And at best in retail, if your conversion rate's 50% or over, you're doing really well. So there's more than half the customers you don't know why they didn't buy. And that'll be for a myriad of reasons. But moving that dial by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% can have significant impact on sales and therefore bottom line, can't it?
Yeah, and I've got an example of that actually with Victoria's Secret, launched us across their UK stores. And for them, one of their key metrics is, I think it's about 4 out of 5 people that are offered a bra fitting will then go on to buy a bra. And so one of the key behaviors that they need their teams to do is offer that bra fitting in there. And when they started, I believe we were at about 86% of customers that were being offered, which is a great number, but we got that up to 96 through those observations as well. And obviously, that's a metric where you've got a really clear return on investment and of doing that time and showing that behavior really does move the dial. And of course, it's a tricky balance. Lots of retailers sometimes, I think, shy away from wanting to talk about, we do this to improve sales. Often you kind of want that extra step of, well, it improves the customer journey and the customer experience. But I think observations bridge that gap perfectly because you get a really good mix of the things that improve the behaviors the things that improve the experience. But those are the things that move the dial at the end of the day. If we're having a better customer experience, we're going to see those sales kind of kick in from there.
Yeah, and in a world, and we've talked about it endlessly on the podcast probably in the last 12 to 18 months, where wages are going up, turnover is a lot higher, certainly in retail and hospitality, people aren't staying very long. You're probably going to be faced with more cost challenges year on year with national living wage, or probably you are. It's really important that the people that are there are coached, developed, but also are trying to sell more, because you're not going to keep saving your way out of where we're at. That race to the bottom's done and run. Now it's about, yes, I may have a smaller pool of people, but how can they be more effective? And that could be effective, but Rethink we're interested in process and stuff, but actually more effective from a conversion and therefore selling, because the more I sell, the more people I'll get in my budget typically moving forward, the better the company does. So it has a real big knock-on effect in that sphere, doesn't it, of you can't save your way out of this, but you probably can sell your way out of it.
That's it, yeah. And as you point out, it's a blend of the two, but I often think people are way too focused on how do we save money and not how do we make money, and the two do go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so interesting journey. Love all that around the coaching and the developing sales, and certainly on the why people didn't buy and what could you do differently. You can't sell to everybody, but if you can increase it by percentage points, that's a big difference. Where are you looking in the future then? So you mentioned AI, and we talked again offline about everything's AI now and where's it going? From a business point of view, where do you see the big opportunities for Ocasta using AI, and where's that going to take you?
Yeah, we've already got it broadly across the platform. Things like using that knowledge base I mentioned to give instant answers. And we search across all of the comms and the other areas. So someone can say, is the till system broken today? And it will give them a quick kind of Google-like AI summary at the top of the results there, just to make sure that people are getting the answers. So I think that's a big thing we're seeing across all the industries at the moment, is a shift away from, don't give me the things to read, give me the answers that I need. And obviously content generation, I've mentioned the ability to quickly create that micro learning straight from your SOPs that you've already got. For me, a big piece around our AI strategy is to make sure that we are remembering, as I kind of hinted at earlier, that these are real people in real environments talking to real people, and we need to not forget that when we're building in any AI pieces in there. So we recently did a webinar all around the kind of keeping human judgment in anything that's done with AI, and making sure that we're not making decisions for people. We're just making sure that they're informed and prioritized as to what they should do. So if we stick with the coaching theme, we've obviously spoken about the observation side, but it's what comes after the observation that actually really has an impact on to closing those gaps. So right now in the platform, the manager can create action plans and tasks and create a kind of continue and begin framework for each of their colleagues off the back of each observation. But what we're seeing is managers aren't necessarily the best coaches. They were brought into their role because they probably had a good relationship with the team, really good operationally, but maybe lack some of that L&D abilities that is something you really need to be a good coach. So we're just about to launch an AI coaching assistant. So what that does for each observation is it analyzes the ideal journey you want the customers to go on. It looks at the real data based on how the manager observed that behavior, and then gives some really good succinct snapshots of recommended tasks. It looks at the learning that's on the platform and suggests what learning they might want to assign to that associate. But it's all very much to guide the manager's conversation and not replace their role in the store. Because I think it's really important the manager's got their finger on the pulse of how their team are performing and behaving, and also just giving them that associate a load of information isn't going to solve those issues, but giving the manager the right questions to ask to build up a conversation, helping build that out into those action plans becomes a really powerful tool. And we've made sure to, I don't know if you've seen this, but a lot of the kind of Gen Zs in the workplace really want to know the why behind whatever they're being asked. So across the platform, whenever we're using AI, we always make sure we put the why for anything that we're generating, whether that's a task that's been flagged off the back of an observation, like why is this important? And it could be as simple as this helps improve conversions, or this improves the customer experience, or it might be a bit more nuanced depending on the depth of it as well. So there's some of the kind of key areas. And then another piece we want to look at is how do we do more of those performance reviews when we're looking across multiple observations and giving the manager the right kind of prompts to guide that conversation as well.
Excellent. Yeah. So I think the word you just said there at the end was prompt. So helping the manager sifting away all the sorting through documents and keeping the consistency across the colleague base is all really helpful stuff. And I assume ends up with better quality and a more sustained approach, and hopefully an uplift then in quality at the conversational end as we get back to the customer.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I mean, for me, the thought of being observed sometimes feels a bit like overwhelming. Just let me get on with it and do my job. But in the times I've been in stores and seen an observation happen, the associate and colleague often runs straight over to the manager once the customer leaves, saying, "How did I do? What could I do better?" Which did really surprise me. That kind of openness and eagerness to be coached, and I think that's again where those conversations and discussions become really powerful, and that's where we don't want AI to replace that human judgment and interaction. Because obviously, if AI could replace that, then AI can replace retail, and you don't need the stores. But I don't think anyone in the kind of retail community would think that's the right thing to do.
No, and an interesting example as well, which shows that particular organisation, the culture was about learning, understanding and improving, and not kind of big brothers watching, these are all the things that you did wrong, must do better. So yeah, a really good example of how it can be used to drive performance. So Ben, we'll pause there, and we will see you at the forum on the 10th of September in Birmingham. And if people want to come over, then you've got a stand and you'll be able to show them some of the stuff we talked about and go through any other questions, I assume.
Yeah, we can give people an early look at the coaching assistant, and really keen to get some feedback from everyone at the show as to how they do their observations and help tweak and shape the platform.
Amazing. Look forward to catching up, and thanks for coming on. We'll speak soon.
Anytime. Thanks, Simon.